The exercise you just saw is the burpee. An excellent exercise. I love doing it. It works both as a very, very powerful cardio and works on the muscle. It works very, very well on muscles, the big muscles in the legs and thighs, the muscles of the chest. For me, doing a burpee is equivalent to doing many, many push-ups, because I feel like I'm basically blocking the weight of the body with the chest muscles, the arms. It works great. There's even a rumor that Bruce Lee liked the burpee because it constantly forces you to exercise different parts of the body. So you move from the chest to the leg, chest to legs, and you force the blood to go through your body very, very fast. I don't know the physics of it, but it works wonders. The interesting thing about the burpees is that I haven't done them in a very long time, almost 2 years. I started doing burpees seriously during Corona time. During the Corona, I couldn't go to the gym where I usually do my powerlifting, squat, deadlift, and bench. That's my holy trinity. That's really what almost all my training is focused on: high weights, squat, deadlift, and bench. And I couldn't do that. There was no way. So I had to find a replacement. And I went on the internet and I found the burpee with numerous variations. You can move, do several push-ups instead of one, smaller jumps, lower jumps, moving your hands forward, the legs forward in a variety of directions. It's great. And after stopping to do the burpees and starting again as a powerlifting, I was worried what would happen if I would start to do burpees again regularly. I was worried for a lot of reasons. First of all, I thought that I would create some kind of a muscle fatigue that would prevent me from excelling in the other exercise and could potentially even lead to injury. When I'm doing heavy squats, mostly heavy squats, a little bit less heavy deadlifts, but mostly heavy squats, my body is sore. It's sore for several days afterwards, and that's normal, even for professionals, especially for people my age. And I was afraid that if I would build on top of that the burpees, it would not work so well. And I haven't done it. And then I decided to give it a try just about a week ago. After all my training, so a full set of exercises, and after I do my powerlifting, I do quite a lot of calisthenics also and stretching. I said, let's do the burpees. And I'm standing there in the gym. I said, I'm going to do a short burpee set, just like you saw, just 10 burpees. That's nothing for what I used to do. But then I thought, I don't remember the exercise. I don't. It was very, very strange. But I said, let's do it anyway. What's the worst that could happen? Let's try to forget about the ideas in my head and about my memories, and let's just let the body play it on autopilot. And it worked very, very well from the first time. So I noticed that I lost a lot of my aerobic ability, which is not surprising for me, because even though I always I run twice a week in a short pace, it's not the same level. Because when I used to do burpees, I used to do sets of 20 or 30 burpees, or what I consider to be one of the best exercises there is, I would do sets of 10 burpees, and then every minute on the minute, I start another set. I do it for 10 minutes. And that's a killer exercise. It's really, really great. So you do 10 burpees, let's say it takes you 30 seconds, you have 30 seconds to rest, to recover, do it again. So in just 10 minutes, which is the amount of time it takes me to recover between heavy powerlifting sets, I can get a magnificent exercise that is really excellent. So I haven't done it in a long time, and when I get to do it, I see that aerobically I'm not there. So I could do sets of 10 work fine, but if I work for longer sets, or if I do many sets one after the other, my cardio is not up to par. But I remember the exercise, and I always knew that cardio is something that you can improve very, very fast compared to muscles. So if you want to improve your cardio, especially when you're younger, just start running every day for a couple of months. you do just fine. You can reach a very, very high level. Some people say you run a bit less or 3 times a week or something like this. Some people say that you try intervals. There are all kind of variations. My method when I was doing the running was run every day, not very, very fast, but long distances, 12 kilometers every day, and then aerobically it does just wonders. But why am I telling you all this? I mean, most of my audience is interested in multilingual skills. And from my perspective, it's exactly the same thing. Because when you become a multilingual, once you know a second language, usually it's English, you use it all the time, no problem. If you know a third language, which is language that you use a lot, a work language, usually French, German, Spanish, that's also fine. But once you go to the 4th, 5th, and later languages, that's when you start to have dormant languages. You start to have languages that you know, but you haven't used for a very long time. Just like my body remembers the burpees, but I don't have it on quick recall. I cannot foresee myself doing that because I haven't done it for so long. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to explain how multilinguals can keep those dormant languages, try to avoid making them a dormant language to begin with, and if they are in this situation, how they can recover them because their memory of a language is still in their head. My name is Shai Dotan. I'm Associate Professor of International Public Law at the University of Copenhagen Faculty of Law, and the purpose of this series of lectures is to help you improve your English and your language and research skills. I want to start by stating what may be obvious to many of my listeners, and this is that dormant languages are not a natural thing. If you want to know the language and to be able to use it on demand, you need to use it actively and regularly. That is very, very important. I understand that very well now that after a very long time, I have a private teacher in Danish, and she helps me to improve my language, but she always insists that, I have to speak, and I have to speak in real situations. And that's true even for a language that I know well enough to teach in for hours and hours on end, all the more so when you go to these dormant languages, which for me are French and German, which I know, and I read many books in them, and I had conversations in them, and I listened and I talked to some extent, but I haven't been doing it regularly. So being in this situation is something that is not natural for a language, it's not healthy for your language skills. You need to practice using the language actively. That's very, very important. And in many of my videos in this channel, I explain some of the challenges that this involves. The shame that is involved in sounding less intelligent than you are, the fear that somebody will misunderstand you in ways that can be embarrassing, sometimes even hurtful. The fear that somebody will switch, usually to English, and you don't find a courteous and easy way to move them back to the language you were practicing. For a lot of people that are not multilinguals or that don't live in a country where the local language is a language they don't know that well, this sounds maybe trivial. They don't know what I'm talking about. But just imagine that you engage in this conversation that is important for you with somebody that you want to impress. It doesn't mean it has to be an employer. It can be a service provider. It can be a pedagogue for your kids or something like that, a kindergarten teacher. This is a situation in which you want to show your best face. And then you're looking for a word that is so trivial that a 3-year-old would probably know it. It escapes your memory. Even though probably if you would see it, you would recognize it, but you don't remember it. That's embarrassing. That's tough. That's hard. And now finding the possibility to do that with dormant languages is sometimes very, very hard. And I find it, in fact, I don't do that myself in French and German. In German, I actually have an excuse because it's so similar to Danish that I I often get confused. So when I have to teach a lot in Danish, I say, okay, I'm going to cut back on the German, not even reading in German for a while, because it is going to confuse me with the Danish. But in French, I have to find a person, make them, available for you, to give you the time, do something that is very artificial and start a conversation. That's hard. But if you want to progress, if you want to get better, you need to do that. So I start with that, and I just put it at that. I will also say that today there are possibilities with apps that allow you to talk to them. And if you don't want to pay what is sometimes a high price for such an app, you can use, for example, the chatbot of ChatGPT, especially if you have a plus version. It works fine. Then the challenge becomes a challenge psychologically. So do you manage to find the mental fortitude to sit down, start a conversation with a machine, continue the conversation with a conscious effort to learn and to progress? And if you manage to do that, that's great. And I think that's an excellent way to learn. Otherwise, try to find a way to get yourself to speak, to get yourself to use your active capacity of using the language. It doesn't matter if there is anybody to correct you. It doesn't matter if there's anybody to listen to you, as long as you do that. That's the active use of a language. And that is something that is very, very important. There are different aspects of a language that deteriorate in a different pace, just like with the burpee. My muscle memory is perfectly fine. I don't have any problem with strength, but I have a problem with cardio. But with a language, I could see similar things happening. So in situations where, for example, you would be able to read in a language even after a long time you haven't read, but using it actively would still be a challenge, and it would take quite a long time to get ready to do that properly. So the best case scenario is you use your language actively and regularly, and do not make it dormant to begin with. That's ideal. Now, let's start from the premise that you cannot do that, or you didn't do that. With some languages that are dear to you, they are now dormant. You haven't used them actively for a while. Maybe you've read a little bit, maybe you listened a little bit, but you haven't spoken in this language or written anything in this language for, let's say, months or even years. What does this mean? Does it mean that you forgot everything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The vocabulary is probably still there in your head, so much so that if you would probably see a word in this language, you would probably know how to define it. It's just that the recall will be more difficult. So you could find yourself saying a sentence, let's say I would say a sentence in German, and then I would look for a word and I would not find it in my head. But the same word that I'm looking for, if I would read it in German, in a split second I would understand it, I would know its meaning, I would even know how to define it in German without any problem. So the words are still there, just like the muscle memory where my body remembers the burpees. Or just like, which I think is far more amazing, I haven't been doing powerlifting for probably around 4 years. And even before that, there were several years in which I was doing the bare minimum. So let's say we take a period of almost 5 years of not doing powerlifting. And then after a matter of 3-4 months of very, very careful training, with, I wouldn't say even an injury, but with just a few stretching that resulted. 2 years later, I am probably at my peak, even despite the fact that I'm 43 years old. So the body remembered everything. It remembered not just the fact that the muscle is strong enough, it remembers the technique. The same thing goes with languages. And I've tried it myself many, many times. I've had long periods in which I was not using French or German, and then I forced myself to use them, and at first it was a bit difficult, but then it managed to it came back to me quite easily. So what I want to focus on, if you are in the situation where you have a dormant language, is on two things. First of all, if you cannot preserve the language itself, so you cannot use it actively, try at least to preserve the capacity to use languages. So just like, yes, I was not doing powerlifting for 4 years, but I was training every other day. I didn't go a week without training. Actually, when I come to think of this, more than, I think around 20 years, maybe even more than that. There were periods in which I was training every day. There were periods in which I was training every other day. There were periods in which I was training very, very hard twice a week, but not a week passed without very, very intense training, not even one. So obviously, if I would not do powerlifting for 5 years and I would be not exercising at all, and then I would try to do the exercises, it would be a disaster. Of course, the muscle would probably atrophy completely. I don't think even the technique would remain, because I think that somehow when you keep a muscle active, again, I'm not an expert, but I just think I see that if I keep a muscle active doing X, I remember how to do Y in a different way. So if I keep a muscle active doing the burpees, I can do it in a squat. It's not just the fact that I keep the muscle strong enough. It's part of that. It's a major part of that. But it's also the part of that I am exercising regularly. And that's exactly the same with the languages. So if I am focusing very, very hard on my Danish now, and I'm learning how to pronounce, and I'm learning 20, 30 new words every week. I'm checking the dictionary. I'm trying to understand how to use them. I'm practicing using them. I'm practicing speaking. All these things are contributing to my ability 2 years down the line, 1 year down the line, if necessary, a week from now, to return to German. It's the same, it's transferable skills. It's the same capacity that my brain uses. At the beginning, there could be a contradiction between the languages. That's a phenomenon that I called polyglot fatigue in my book. So I'm now so focused on my Danish that every time I would try to build a sentence in German, I would not be able to, because the word in the Danish would just jump there very silently in my mind and confuse me. But if I would cut down on my Danish, even when I say cut down, I mean even for 3 hours. If I would watch a movie in German for 3 hours, and then I would try to speak, I would be able to do it relatively well, and I would be able to do it because I keep my mind all the time processing languages. So if you are a multilingual and some of your languages are dormant, still work very, very hard learning other languages. You are building your muscles and your muscles memory for languages very, very active as you do that. So that's the first principle. You keep over time doing things that are keeping your mind ready for the language. If you are able, in addition to that, to do just a little bit of maintenance using passive learning, that's great. So if, let's say, every month or every 2 months, you pick up a short book in a language that is dormant and you read it quickly, even without checking words that you don't know, you still, I think, keep the language a bit more alive in your head. Then it will be easier to make it alive when you want to, and you want to perform with this language very well. And then the question is, you have now a situation where a language is dormant. Let's say that you are perfectly skilled in being a multilingual because you're exercising learning languages all the time. You need to awaken it fast. And then the key is really just the same thing that I said at the beginning of the lecture, just 100 times stronger. Active, active, active. No excuses. Don't imagine that using passive learning skills is a substitute for being brave and being active. And I say brave because almost all the time being active means speaking, and almost all the time being speaking means somebody hears you, and it's embarrassing and it's hard. But that's exactly what you need to do. So you set yourself as a goal, and you set yourself a realistic goal. You say, for example, if I want to be able to perform a month from now in French in a reasonable way, I will never be able to I will never be able to do a very good job in a month. But if I had to, in a month, I'll be able to have a simple conversation in French. So you have to exercise your way towards it. So you have to set multiple sessions of speaking where you actively use your language. And I believe that it's doable. I have to say that I've never been in a situation where my career depended on it. So I could imagine a situation in which this would happen to some professionals, and then you have an incentive, but then also you may freak out a little bit because it's too scary. But I think that this is doable. Again, without trying that on when the stakes are high and when the stress is up, I still believe that this is something that is doable. You can make a dormant language alive. Just like I managed to go back from doing burpees every other day to doing 6 hours of heavy powerlifting every week. And that's something that is perfectly possible to do with your dormant languages. And the sooner you do it, the better. And of course, I understand if you have a certain set of priorities where you said that there are certain languages that they just can't afford to invest in. But I really believe in the power of multilingualism. That's the key of these lectures. And I believe that if you take good care to keep yourself in excellent shape, keep as many languages alive as possible, and then in the first opportunity, make a dormant language into a live language, then you will profit from it and your environment will profit from it. That is all for today. For me, Shai Dotan. If you like the video, please like it. I'll be very happy if you comment on it. I really like your comments. And of course, if you subscribe to my channel. And until next time, keep learning.